Hi and welcome to NUFC Matters, and it is Dream Team again. And this is a very special episode because obviously we've been getting different people on to pick their dream teams. And I just thought, because a lot of people who watch the Retro Show will know George is our eldest elder statesman on the shows, and Holly is our youngest presenter. And I just thought it would be great and contrasting to get both of them on together. To give us the dream teams together, because it just shows you the big difference between people's selections. So, hi, Holly, and hi, George.
Hello, you're all right?
Yeah,
yes,
great.
Thank you.
Great to see both of you on. Thanks for agreeing to do it this way. And without further ado, you're going to pick your 11 and then give us your subs and then give us your manager. George, will come to you first, and we will go with your goalkeeper, please.
Goalkeeper is Ronnie Simpson, the cat, as he was known in the Gallagher end. And one of the reasons I've taken to Ronnie is that he performed at the highest level as a goalkeeper at a time when goalkeepers weren't protected. It's amazing nowadays. I find it absolutely irritating sometimes, the way in which goalkeepers are protected. I mean, Ronnie Simpson was at a time when he couldn't take more than 2 steps without bouncing the ball. Players could surround him if they wanted to. There was no rules to say you couldn't stand in front of him. He could only have the ball in his hands for 10 seconds, and then the referee would give a free kick. I mean, all of these things are just the sort of things that would tie up a lot of the modern goalkeepers. But it didn't tie up Ronnie. He was very fit. And indeed, what I'd like to say is that people might expect with my age, they were looking to see names like Gallagher and Veach and people like that in the team. Well, I'm of the view that about the mid-50s to early 60s, footballers realised they just weren't footballers. They had to become athletes. And that was the big difference, and it's the big difference now. And Ronnie Simpson was one of the first to do that. He wasn't just a goalkeeper. He took ballet lessons to improve his ability to leap. He took gymnastic lessons to improve his physical agility and his physical strength. And he found all sorts of odd ways of defeating some of the things that goalkeepers used to have to put up with. For example, a Bolton centre forward called Nat Lofthouse made a name for himself by standing right next to the goalkeeper when the cat caught a cross, and then shoulder charging them into the back of the net. Well, Ronnie Simpson avoided that by learning how to flip the ball in different directions out of the goal area. So it's on the basis that I think he would perform in the modern day age probably a lot easier than he did in the 50s when he was at his peak. He also then had to put up with all the rubbish that he got from the then manager, who I had to suffer with as well, Charlie Mitten, who decided that this man who'd played for decades, represented his country about 15 times, wasn't big enough, wasn't tall enough for Newcastle United, and shipped him off to Hibernian for practically nothing. It was just outrageous. And he gets picked up by Jock Stein and taken to Celtic. He's back in the Scotland team, and he goes and wins the European Cup. And Charlie Mitten didn't think he was good enough for Newcastle United. So that's why I've taken to Ronnie Simpson.
Great stuff. It's always that bit about not wearing gloves always gets me, and just shows you the difference,
Yeah.
of course, between goalkeepers in the past and goalkeepers now. So, Holly, who was your goalkeeping choice?
I went for current number 1, Martin Dubravka. I think in my lifetime, he's certainly been one of the best. He made an instant kind of impression on the fans. He came in obviously on loan halfway through the first season back in the Premier League after we'd been relegated, made his debut against Man U, and he was absolutely phenomenal, and we did go on to win that game. And I just think you can always rely on him constantly. But not only does he keep the goals out of the net and keep the score down, he does also command his box very, very well. He keeps the defence organised, and he's a massive voice on that pitch, which is something that we certainly lack, especially in recent times. And as well, I think if it hadn't been for Martin Dubravka, I think we probably would have went down some years, because he has saved so many goals that would have led to us going on to kind of losing games, and obviously we would have slipped down the league. And of course, he has kind of done the defence's job for them as well. So times when the defence is lacked, he's really stepped up and made sure that we don't concede those goals, which has been vital.
Yeah, it's a good point. I guess, George, the one thing you've seen in the years that you've supported Newcastle, George, is we've had a plethora of good goalkeepers.
Yes, and in the modern era, I think we've got the coach Simon Smith to thank for that. I mean, if you look at the goalkeepers that we've had from Harper, from Krul, from Woodman, the lad that's now our third choice came back from being a Newcastle Academy player, and he was coached by Simon Smith. So we've had modern times, we've had really good goalkeepers. But in the past, people like Swinburne, Jack Fairbrother. I mean, Jack Fairbrother should have played for England. Everybody in the North East felt like that. He got a B cap, but he never got into the first team. But we've had some superb goalkeepers. We've been very fortunate. Could I just come back on another one about goalkeepers?
Yeah.
In doing this, I looked at some stats about time wasting in the modern era that Ronnie Simpson wouldn't have got away with. On average, in the modern game, the home goalkeeper wastes 9 minutes of football time in a game.
Yeah.
The away goalkeeper averages about 11 minutes time wasted in a game. So there's nearly 20 minutes of football disappeared because the two goalkeepers are clarting around with the ball. And last year, the goalkeeper that wasted the most time in a match, nearly 15 minutes, was Carl Darlow.
That's a great stat.
Gives it a Newcastle context.
It does. Okay, give us your right back then, George.
Warren Barton comes out as my right back. Warren Barton is a modern day fullback in the sense that he's a great attacking fullback, but he was also a great defending fullback. I get tired of seeing fullbacks who are modern day labelled as wing backs and great attackers, and then they look terrible when they're going backwards. I mean, some of them in the England team I don't regard as complete fullbacks because they're either good going one way or good going the other. But Warren Barton had both. He had pace. And then another thing about Warren Barton, he's one of those players who was always ready to receive the ball. He would never let his mates down. You could give Warren Barton a suicide ball and he'd have a good go to get it for you and recover it. Not like some of the current squad, current midfielder, Shelby. He would take a suicide ball. He's more likely to give you one. Where Warren Barton was always ready to receive the ball from his teammates and get out of a hole if we needed. So it's Warren's overall playing ability and support for his team that made me pick him as right back. And bear in mind, over the years, going back to when I was at St James's Park myself, I was coached by a former fullback called Benny Craig, who again should have played for England if it hadn't been for the war. And then there was people like Dick Keith, Irish fullback, who was brilliant, David Craig, Irvin Natris. You can list them, all brilliant fullbacks. But I think Warren Barton surpasses them all.
Yeah, good shout. Been quite a few people's teams. You're right back then, Holly.
Right back, I went for Danny Simpson. I think he played a massive part in the first championship season when we were under Chris Hughton. And I think he had a really, really good partnership with Joey Barton as well. I think he was one of the key players in that season, it was fair to say, and he was someone that was quite resilient. He could play through injury and he'd always give 100%. And that's something that I really value in a player, when no matter how tough circumstances get, they continue playing and they give the best, because that's all we want as fans. It's not necessarily about who's the most gifted and who's the most technically able, but who really fights for the badge and is proud to wear the black and white shirt. And for me, Danny Simpson did that.
Yeah, great player. Bit of an unsung hero. Bit of an unsung hero. And of course, Holly, he went to Leicester and went and won the Premier League.
That's right.
Yeah, no, it just shows you how great he can be. And yet again, another bad decision from the club, obviously letting him go. But that's great that he did that with Leicester, because I think he deserved it.
Yeah, definitely did. Great lad as well. Good ambassador for the club. Behaved himself on nights out around the city as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
good player. Sometimes it's not just about what you do on the pitch, but how you conduct yourself off it. Okay, George, we'll go for centre halves now. Your first centre half, please.
Well, my first centre half is Jonathan Woodgate, on the basis that he wasn't just an able defender; he was a good footballer, and again another modern footballer who realised he had to be an athlete as well as a footballer, and got himself superbly fit. And it's just as well he did, because he suffered from a number of debilitating illnesses during his career, which curtailed his career massively, particularly when he was in Spain, but also with us. Illnesses which ordinary mortals would have just gone to their sick bed, where Jonathan Woodgate trained and played through it all and kept himself as fit as he could. But he could read the game. He was good with either foot, which is a thing in my mind. I get terribly irritated when I see players so obviously one-footed on a football field these days. So I think of the hours that I used to spend in the car park at St James's Park against the old gym with Benny Craig and Joe Richardson, banging a ball against the gym wall with them shouting right foot, left foot, right foot, and having to do it with no thinking. Just do it until you could hit the ball well with either foot. Nowadays, it just irritates me terribly to see players who are so one-footed. Jonathan Woodgate was very good on either side, and superb header of the ball, reader of the game, and could turn in a flash, turn defence into attack with a clever ball and take forward. So that's why Jonathan Woodgate.
Okay, and Holly, on to your first centre half, please.
My first centre-back was Stephen Taylor. I think that he was a very passionate player. He was very emotionally connected to both the fans, the city and the club. And I think obviously he stuck with us through the first relegation. And I think he felt that relegation just as intensely as the fans did. I think the emotion that he showed really reflected how the fans felt at that time. And of course, he left just when Rafa Benitez came in as well. And that really, really upset me, to be honest, because I think under Rafa Benitez, he could have just done even better than he had done previously. I think that was a chance for him to really push on. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But for the time that he was here, I think he just summarised everything that the club and the fans want, which is just a player that's very, very passionate, connected, and feels everything that the club goes through and the fans go through just as intensely as we do.
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out for me about Stephen Taylor as well was he was always somebody who was a bit of an innovator. He would come up with something which nobody else did, which was a little bit annoying. That was playing in goal, maybe when he was an outfield player, diving across. And he went down in that particular game where he looked like a sniper had hit him as well, Holly.
Yeah.
He certainly 100% Newcastle fan, Holly, as well. I think that made a big difference. He wore his heart on his sleeve, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and I think that's what made him stand out for me, the fact that he was just so passionate about the club, and every 90 minutes that he played, he cared about. And when we did lose, I think it affected him, whereas other players maybe don't care as much as he did.
Yeah,
100%.
I do agree, Holly, that I think if he'd been around when Rafa came, I think he would have been a better player. But
definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think he's one of them who could have been coached. He was up for new ideas, and I think that his career is still ongoing. I mean, he's made such made a good career out of football. He hasn't been afraid to take a move abroad. I mean, I keep in touch with the guy, and genuine person, heart in the right place. And a lot of people say the modern day players won't do talk-ins. Believe you me, I think the likes of Stephen Taylor Tim Kroll, etc. You'll see them on the after dinner circuit. I mean, Ryan Taylor did one pre-COVID. It was great. Kevin Nolan's done them. So I think some of the players from the recent era, which Holly will know, will do quite well and have plenty of stories to tell. Certainly about Mike Ashley and some of the managers they played under. In fact, some of these stories are horror stories, ready to be unveiled on a watching public moving forward. But watch this space, I guess. Okay, next centre half for you then, George.
Philip Albert, the Prince. Technically one of the most gifted players I've seen. Yes, he was a defender, but I suspect he could have played anywhere. He was put physically strong and fit, quick, two-footed, excellent in the air. It would have been a fantastic foil for Jonathan Woodgate. They would have been an impressive pair together. But again, able to turn defence into attack with just a single pass. Or if he got in the position, able to take the ball forward and make a goal chance for himself. And I don't think anybody will forget his wonder goal against Manchester United in the 5-0 defeat of Manchester United. I mean, it was most forwards would have been happy to have scored that, but Philip just took it nonchalantly. And another nice man, another nice guy. So Philip Albert gets my second centre back space, and he has it all: the skill, two-footed skill, the heading ability, physical ability. He's quick, good tackler, good all-round defender, but also, as I say, able to turn defence into attack quite quickly.
Yeah, didn't spend much time at the back, George. I think some of the talkings I've done with those players, they've often said Philip Albert was usually to be found on the opposition 6-yard area rather than his own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true, yes. But nonetheless, I think while he was with us, he did the job for us.
No, definitely. Okay, Holly, your next player, please.
Colaccini is my next centre-back. He did captain us for a period in the 2011-12 season when we got the Europa League, which was my favourite season as a fan of Newcastle. Of course, he played a lot of minutes for the club, and he very rarely made a mistake whenever he was playing. He was a very reliable player, and I think he actually had a really good partnership with Stephen Taylor, so picking those two together did actually work out. And of course, he scored when we drew 2-2 as well after being 2-0 down at Wigan, I believe it was, in the Championship, which is a game that sticks out in my head. And my favourite goal as well from Colaccini, I know he is a centre-back, so you don't really think of goals, but was the goal that he scored in the 1-1 draw against Spurs away. I really do remember that goal, and I thought it was brilliant the way he took it. But not even just as a centre-back, Colaccini is probably one of my favourite players in general within the whole kind of Newcastle squad out of all the positions.
One of my favourite players, I guess, Holly, at the time, but I think it always left a bit of a sour taste in the mouth. There was that FA Cup game where he just refused to play, I think. And I mean, the rumours turned into facts getting out, and he was one of a group of players who just didn't value the FA Cup. It was a little bit annoying. And it was sad to see his career at Newcastle soured a little with, off the field troubles and, his dad trying to take him back to his hometown club. So obviously family issues dragged him away. But no doubt about it that he stood up. He was along with Stephen Taylor, I guess, and he stood up and was counted once. When Newcastle needed him, and I wouldn't put him as a legend for me, but I can see where you're coming from. I certainly think at the time that you've watched Newcastle, he's been a very impressive player, and of course he had his own song. I think that tells you how much the fans loved him.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I must say, picking this team is probably one of the hardest things I've done because I'm so limited for choice with being so young. Like, George's team will be so much better, and I'm very jealous of the players that he's seen compared to me.
It's funny when I get the team sent through. I look at the teams when they come in, and I've got to be honest, if I'd had to write George's team down as a guess, I would have been miles out. With yours, Holly, I think I would have got most of them, but I was really intrigued to see where George was coming from. But look, let the public watch it and see where we're coming from. So we're going to go left back now, George. Who was your left back?
If I could come back, I have to say in support of Holly that I did like Colaccini as a player. I just, in terms of what we're doing now, I don't think he was in the class of Woodgate and Albay, and that's why he's not in my team. So left back, gosh, that was quite hard as well. We've had some fantastic left backs in the time that I've watched Newcastle United. But the one that sticks out for me is Frank Clark. Again, one of the slightly older players who worked out that being a player wasn't enough. You had to be fitter and faster and all the rest of it. And again, although he was a left back, Frank Clark was good with either foot. There was no way wingers could take Frank Clark on the inside, and he could always show them down the line and keep up with him. He was very quick, good in the air, and able to, when necessary, be an active modern wing back, if you like. He quite often got down the left wing. So the other thing about Frank Clark, a brilliant reader of the game. He would the sort of fullback who would cover his centre halves all the time. You could bet your bottom dollar that if the forwards of the opposition got through the middle of the game, the defence, through past the centre halves, who would be there to mop it up would be Frank Clark, and he was very reliable at that. And again, Newcastle through and through. When Frank Clark left, I'm sure he's one of the long list of players who didn't really want to go, but felt that just were pushed out the door. And again, another nice guy, but for me, a good reader of the game, good two-footed player for a fullback, but also a good coverer of the centre backs. If they got into trouble, I think they knew that Frank Clark would be there to mop up what was left behind. So Frank Clark was my left back.
Frank Clark knew my father. My father knew Frank Clark. What a great song that was as well. A blast from the past. Okay.
It was.
Your left back then, Ollie, please.
Left back, picked Jose Enrique. Still to this day, I think he's got a very good connection to the fans. He was a fan favourite. He really understood what it meant to play for Newcastle. And of course, he had about 120 appearances for the club, I believe, which is a lot of game time. And he did win the Player of the Season as well in the Championship season under Chris Hughton. So I think that really speaks volumes about what he was capable of. And he still speaks very, very highly of the club. And I think he's another kind of ex-player that it pains him a lot to see the current situation that the club's in under Ashley's ownership. So for me, I think it just proves that he really, really understands the club. And as well, he was a good player. He always put in 100% effort, and he really turned up when he was called upon.
Yeah, going into the days of social media as well with your supporting of the club, and a lot of the players have Twitter accounts, etc. And you're right, the connection is more there. Unless people like myself when I was younger stood outside the ground or the training ground and waited for players and got autographs. That was the closest you could get to them. But there's more of a reach, isn't there, nowadays, Holly, with social media?
Yeah, there is. Sorry, you can speak, it's fine.
No, I was just going to say that Jose Enrique was one of the ones that I struggled with a little bit when I was thinking about left back. But then there were others before Frank Clark, people like Alf McMichael, an Irish fullback, who was brilliant for us. 2 cup finals, winning cup finals and that sort of thing. But I still come back to the Frank Clark being the great reader of the game as well as all the other things. But
yeah, definitely was
in my thoughts. There's no doubt about it.
The social media thing's big though, isn't it, Holly, for getting in touch with people?
Yeah, it is. And I think currently in the side, someone that communicates really well via social media is Alan St. Maximin. You constantly see him talking to fans, and that really does help as well. Actually, when it comes to the game on a Saturday, fans feel a little bit more connected to the player and like they know them more because they've seen messages online or them even posting photos with their family. It gets like the feeling that you know them better. So I think it can be a really, really good thing for the club. And I think that that's something that should definitely utilise, like strengthening communication between players, managers and the fans, because it's really helpful.
Yeah, okay. Into the midfield. Teams are shaping up nicely. Let's go right side of the midfield, George, for you.
Oh, well, this was an easy one for me in the sense that I've chosen my all-time Newcastle United great. Jackie Milburn was my right-sided midfield player. Not just a great player, a lovely man who had the great fortune to meet when I was a youngster playing as a schoolboy with Newcastle. I played in the A team when Jackie managed the A team. But apart from that, this is a man who 7 times in his career was our leading goal scorer. And at one period, 5 seasons in a row, he was our top goal scorer. Not just at outside right, but also at centre forward. He could do either. And he played outside right and centre forward for England as well. But again, I go back to this business about how football changed. Jackie Milburn was one of the older ones who realised in the middle to late 50s that they had to change and be athletes rather than just footballers. And Jackie Milburn made himself an athlete. He took up the Powder Hall sprints. He became a handicap sprinter, and he won Powder Hall twice. And if you want to put a marker down for that, in that period of time, amateur sprinters were struggling to get below 10 seconds for 100 yards. Well, Powder Hall sprinters were doing it 10 years before the amateurs were, and Jackie Milburn got amongst that. But of course, when he did that, he ended up going with Blackburn and McNeil from Blythe, the big trainers there, and they took him into weights and all that kind of thing that the other footballers didn't do. Have a look at some of the pictures of the celebrations of the FA Cup. When you look at them in the dressing room, there's only one person that'll have his shirt off. That's Jackie Milburn, because none of the others didn't have a 6-pack. Some of them, some of them took their shirts off. You'd see brown ale written here, not 6-packs. But Jackie Milburn was one of the original athletes, and as I say, such a superb man. But able to play down the right, through the middle, and cause absolute havoc in defences. But again, as I say, it's little wonder we ended up building a statue to him. If you look at his goal scoring record for Newcastle United, but such a lovely, lovely man as well, and he doesn't get the tributes for his later career that he should. He eventually got to Ipswich as manager. Well, it was Jackie Milburn that set up the great Ipswich training academy in the training grounds, and which people like Bobby Robson and others that followed got the credit for. That was all Jackie Milburn. And we're a great player and a great ambassador for Newcastle United, but also, as I say, a lovely man. And I count it as one of the blessings in my life that I actually met the man and was able to talk with the man. So Jackie Milburn, right-sided midfield.
Okay, right-sided midfield for you, Holly.
Hatton Ben Arthur, for me, he is my favourite player in my whole life. And basically, he was just so exciting to watch. His dribbling was fantastic. And he was one of the main players in my favourite season, which was the 2011-12 season when we did finish 5th. And I think he's very, very similar to Alan Saint-Maximin, modern day. He's someone that can totally change a game. He comes off the bench, he gets everyone off their seats excited to watch. No matter how boring the game's been, he could always kind of change that game up. He had a lot of flair, a lot of character, so many skills, and just talented. He had so much ability beyond belief. And for me, though, the goal that sticks out most in my mind when I think of Ben Arthur was the penalty that he scored against QPR in the season following on from the Europa League when we did struggle to stay up in the 2012-13, and he scored that penalty which did guarantee us safety that year. That's always the penalty that sticks in my mind from him, but it's probably just because that season there was a lot of fear that we would go down after such a successful season, and he did manage to secure that. And I think the only problem with Hatton Ben Arthur was, yet again, similar to Saint-Maximin, the fact that he did lack a little bit of discipline. But regardless of the fact that he lacked discipline, I still think he was absolutely second to none in just his ability, and he was just so technically gifted beyond words.
Yeah, okay, great.
I have to confess that he was one of the players that I struggled with when doing this, because I loved Hatton Ben Arthur as well. Outstanding ability. We didn't see enough of him, unfortunately, to put him in what I call my dream team. But I go along with you, Holly. Yes, exciting people was amazing. I was at the Everton match, the away match, when he scored that fantastic goal against Everton. And I've never been in a football stand that rocked so much as that one at Everton with the away fans when Hatton did that, and the fans went home really, really happy. And the gang that I had in the back of the car I was driving, drunk themselves silly all the way back to Tyneside, all in the back of Hatton Ben Arthur. But I can understand why you would like him, and I'm delighted that you like him, because he was a tremendous and is a tremendous player. My wish is, I only wish we'd had Hatton Ben Arthur when we'd had Bobby Robson or Rafa to look after him. I don't think we looked after him very well, which is something I think other people talk about elsewhere. But I can understand why you would like him, and I like that a young person like you would like Hatton Ben Arthur, because that's football. That really is football.
Great stuff. Big shout out to our sponsor, Spider VPN, for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the Google search list. They can protect your computer, your passwords, your photographs, and everything on there. They are the boys to trust. Get on to skipsandbins.com as well, another one of our main sponsors. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Also, a big shout out to L&G Family Funeral Directors, another sponsor this month, 0191 389 7245, and to Darren Baldwin Funerals, 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 2730. Email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, and the website is www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Also, a big shout out to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and Ujab Signature, the makers of our flyers. Subscribe to the channel, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right hand corner, hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share it, drop into the comment section. Even though we're not live today, you can still comment in the section below and speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're available on podcast download services such as iTunes and Spotify in case you missed the show. And just pop onto our website as well. The new shirt is out, the NUFC Matters shirt. That is nufcmatters.com. Get your black and white top to cheer the lads on this season. And keep an eye out for this event as well, coming up at the Tyne Theatre. You can buy your tickets on Voucher and on Groupon. Well worth a look in. It's an evening with Steve Howie, Liam O'Brien, Rule Fox, John Beresford, Supermac, Darren Peacock, John Anderson, and Kevin Scott. The compere on the night is John Gibson. Joe Allen will be there as well. A bit of comedy prior to the event, and a few of the NUFC Matters team will be in the audience. So get yourself along to that. Should be a cracking night, and hope to see you all there. Okay, let's get back to the teams. And we are going on to the left-hand side now, George.
Well, that was easy for me. David Ginola walked it again. I mean, this guy balanced, two-footed, although he played on the left side, and he's another modern footballer. When he took his shirt off, you could see a real six-pack, not how many pies he'd eaten. He really was a complete footballer, tall, racy, very strong, and being totally sexist. The fact that he could do all of that and still look like a bloody film star used to get right up my nose, but never mind.
I'm seeing you picking a lot of people with six-packs here, George.
Well, it goes to what I'm saying to you, that before I maintain it, before the middle 50s, footballers were footballers just because they were good with the ball. Once we got past that, they had to become fit. They had to become athletes, not just footballers. Look at the Busby Babes, 11 young men, and each one of them in their school days represented their school in the England school sports at some sport. Duncan Edwards, the great Busby hero, he won 100 metres at England school sports. He won the shot put, and he won the discus at the England school sports. And yes, he went on to play football for Manchester United. But you can't do all of that if you're not an athlete. And I think that's the difference for me is, and you just look at Ginola and you can see he trained hard to keep his skill. And I think, sadly for David, I think two managers, Arsene Wenger and Lou Macari, damaged his career terribly by saying that he was a diver. He wasn't a diver. He was just a very big man who, when he ran quickly, you didn't have to touch him very hard, and he went down. Naturally, his centre of gravity was quite high. But for us, he was absolutely brilliant. And I'd say it was hard for me because I'm comparing him with left wingers like Bobby Mitchell, for example, who was another hero of mine, who was brilliant, a great goal scorer. But he didn't have the athletic ability that David Ginola had. He didn't have the heading ability that David Ginola had. Very clever on the ball, but David Ginola just had the complete package. And as I say, quick shoot in either foot, and scored some magnificent goals for us, and set up some magnificent goals as well for Shearer and Ferdinand. So yeah, David Ginola, my left side.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay, great stuff. Your left-hand side then, Holly, and I've got to be honest, this is the one I did predict.
My left-hand side is another current player, which is Alan Saint-Maximin. He's so refreshing. He's something that we haven't really had for years, and he's someone that totally goes against the type of football that we play, which is exactly what we want, because we play the most boring football in the league. I think it's fair to say, and I don't think anyone will disagree. And he comes on and he just changes the game. He comes off the bench and instantly it looks like we put a whole new starting 11 out, to be honest, because he makes that much of a difference. Again, much like Ben Arthur, dribbling, excellent. He can really throw off any goalkeeper, any defence, because you don't know what he's going to do. He's so unpredictable. He's someone that frightens a lot of teams. Any given opportunity, they'll just take him out because they don't know what to do. They panic because he's so much of a goal threat. The only frustrating thing with him is, yet again, that he does kind of lack that bit of discipline. He can be selfish at times. He doesn't always make the right decision. Sometimes he'll try and take on about 5 or 6 players rather than make a pass because he wants the attention, which can be frustrating at times. But overall, I just think he's great. And I think he's someone that if he stays at the club, he's only going to get better. And I can't wait to see more of him. It's just hoping that we can manage to keep a hold of him, because that is a massive worry. And I can imagine that there'll be lots of other Premier League clubs sniffing around him.
Yeah, it's a big worry. I mean, George, you can't help but being, impressed, I guess, by ASM.
Well,
I mean, he is a player that gets you out. He's a player that gets you out your seat, George.
Absolutely. I have to say, I suspect if he continues in the vein he started, if he were to do this in another 4 or 5 years' time, I might actually have him in my team as well. But I considered him, but I thought that overall, in terms of contribution to the club over a significant period of time, I had to go with David Ginola.
Yeah,
but Alan, yes, greatly exciting player. Yes, I'm looking forward to him for a year or two.
Let's see who you got in the middle. Who have you started in the middle with, George?
Do you want them both or just the one?
Just the one for now.
Tony Green is my first one. Sadly, we didn't get half out of Tony Green that we should have done, but the little that we did get, he was just amazing. I again, taking modern maxims out of football, and I hear people talking about box-to-box midfielders and who can do this and who can do that. Tony Green could do it all. He was box-to-box. He could run all day. I mean, in a game, it was nothing to see Tony Green doing 10, 15 very long runs with the ball in a match, which is very, very tiring. I'm going back to, it feels like I'm having to go at Shelby. Well, I am having to go at Shelby. You couldn't get more than 3 runs out of Shelby in a match, never mind 10 or 12 or 15 from box to box. But he could also score goals. He could also do the clever passes, the long passes, the short passes. He could do a 60-yard pass. He could do a 10-yard pass. Very significant. Not a very big player, and there's his downfall, unfortunately. He had a big heart and wouldn't back out of a challenge. And unfortunately, going into a challenge against somebody who was a much bigger person than he was, and he damaged his leg. He got a very bad leg injury, which he never really recovered from. But while we had him, he was just outstanding, and he made people tick. You know, he made the likes of the wing players that we had at the time. I mean, I'd love to have seen Tony Green playing with the likes of Jackie Milburn or with the likes of David Ginola or the likes of Keith Gillespie, who were looking for balls to be put at a special place. Tony Green would have supplied that. He was just absolutely fantastic, and a big heart for a little man. But as I say, people talk about box to box. Well, Tony Green had it all.
Top player taken, unfortunately, from football too soon with a horrific injury, but still somebody who likes to get up and visit Newcastle fans on the after-dinner circuit. I know he's been to a few of my events, been along to the Fairs Club events, and ended up working on the pools panel, which for those older viewers will remember that quite a lot. Okay, let's get on to your first centre midfielder, Holly.
Mine is Yohan Cabaye. He came in obviously just after the current captain at the time, Kevin Nolan, left the side, and I think he was exactly what we needed at that time. He came into the side. The most memorable game for me was when we beat Stoke 3-0 at home. He scored 2 and he also got an assist in that game. And the fact that we went on to win that game did push us into the top 4 at the time, which was a massive, massive thing. I must admit, when he was sold to PSG, it left a very, very bitter taste in my mouth, and I was quite disappointed about that, very gutted. But during his time at the club, I thought he was really, really good, and he could get up the pitch brilliantly. You know, he attacked well, but he could also play more defensively if he needed to.
Yeah, great player, to be honest. And again, don't sell Yohan Cabaye, but unfortunately we did, and he moved on. But great player, another good selection. All right, George, who's alongside Tony Green for you in your centre midfield?
Oh, it's got to be Peter Beardsley. Pedro is again, could say the complete footballer. I think he was a good header of the ball, but he struggled a little because of his lack of inches, but he still scored some good headed goals. But in terms of the playing football, either dribbling, passing, you name it, Pedro could do the lot, and he on his own he could turn any side upside down, and did regularly for us, and for the other clubs he played for, and he had a lot to give to Newcastle United, and I regard, and I don't want to go too controversial, I regard it as a tragedy what happened in our academy with Peter Beardsley. You know, I think that was an event that could have been sorted out quickly. My understanding is that 5 years before Newcastle United did anything about it, the FA had letters from parents complaining about things that were happening at the academy. 5 years. And I think myself, what a tragedy, because he has so much talent. And surely it could have been harnessed to pass on to our younger players. And, you know, somebody like that at the academy at the time might well have stopped Lee Clark's lad leaving us in the last week or so, especially as he was a mate of Lee's. But in terms of playing, there are very few midfielders that could keep up with Peter Beardsley in any sense. Regularly near the top of the goal scoring chart, as well as playing out of his skin for the club and whichever club he played for. So Pedro was my natural choice for the other midfield role.
Okay, you've gone with somebody with a bit more of a defensive reputation, Holly, for your centre midfield. Who is it?
Cheick Tiote for me. Again, another player that impressed from his debut against Everton. I think in that game he had something like an 100% pass completion rate. I think pretty much all of his stats were just kind of second to none. Really, really excellent player. Sadly taken from us far too soon, but in his life, you know, that he did live for a short time, he definitely was someone that had a lot of success, not necessarily winning anything, but he made a big impression on all of the Newcastle United fans. of course, the goal for me that stands out is that equaliser v Arsenal when we were 4-0 down, we came back 4-4. I think that was absolutely brilliant. And, you know, the celebration and the way, like, the cameras, you know, all the pundits reacted on TV, it was just excellent. That's something that'll stick with most Newcastle fans that were around then forever. Such a good memory. The sad thing about it for me was the fact that obviously when Rafa Benitez came into the club, the partnership between Sissoko and Wijnaldum in midfield was so good that unfortunately it kept him out of the side. So I felt like it was a little bit like badly kind of done to him, a bit harsh, because I think he could have had a chance, but unfortunately there was better players at the time, and then we did have the likes of Isaac Hayden and Shelvey, which were kind of coming into the side then and keeping him out, so we didn't get that chance under Benitez, and then moved on and sadly wasn't with us for much longer after that. But certainly in the kind of early 2010s to 2012, 13, 14 kind of era, he was excellent.
Yeah, superb player. And again, that goal is one of those goals that we'll always remember, especially those of you who were there. And also the goal he got choked off against Man City was equally as impressive. But yeah, great. And you don't appreciate a player sometimes till they're gone. And, you know, I've always... some of my heroes have always been like players that got stuck in. Like John Anderson was probably one of my first heroes, along with Peter Beardsley, David McCreary. Lucky enough to see them play. And Czech Tiote is in their stamp. You know what I mean? Somebody who would get stuck in, give 100%, and tragic what happened to him. Okay,
another player who would not let his side down.
No, 100%.
Would always receive the ball. Never turn his back on a mate. He would always receive the ball. We've had so many players at Newcastle who know how to turn their back when they don't want the ball, and it hurts the side. Not Czech Tiote. He would always take the ball.
Yeah, certainly wore his heart on his sleeve as well. Okay, this has always been the hard position for people to pick on Dream Team, because we've got a multitude of players that played up front and wore the number 9 shirt, number 10 shirt, etc. with pride. George, give us your first forward, please.
Well, the only number 9 I could pick was Alan Shearer, I'm afraid. If it hadn't have been him, it would have been Jackie Milburn. But Jackie Milburn gave us an out because I knew Jackie was a superb right winger and would have been a fantastic right winger to play balls in for Alan Shearer. So Alan Shearer gets it. Again, just look at his record, his scoring record, the way in which he guided the club along. He could have went to Manchester United and got oodles and oodles of medals and cups. He came home. I had a laugh the other day when I watched the Messi press conference, and they were going on about there being 2,500 fans outside the ground when he was giving his press conference. When Alan Shearer come home, there were 19,500 fans outside the ground and another 10,000 inside the ground when Alan Shearer came home. So, you know, it just reflects on what Newcastle United's like, and Alan Shearer represents us all, and he's gone on doing it with the work he's done in with the Bobby Robson Foundation, his own foundation where he looks after underprivileged children who have disabilities, and I think as an overall package, as a great player, as a great Geordie, Alan Shearer was the only choice I could make. I couldn't get past Alan Shearer, and of course he took Jackie Milburn's scoring record, didn't he?
Yeah, and he's in a lot of teams as well, which is no surprise. Yeah. Okay, Holly, this is interesting. Your next player and your first forward, please.
Pape Cisse. He came in the 2011-12 season under Alan Pardew in the January period after Demba Ba had obviously got a bit of an injury, and then he came in and he definitely stepped up. It's fair to say the football that was played that season, I think, was the best football we've played since Kevin Keegan left the club the first time. And I just think, well, his record speaks for himself personally, doesn't it really? He scored 15 goals in, I think it was 18 games or something. I could be slightly out with that. He got a few hat-tricks within those 15 goals, and he was just, he just really, really made an instant impact. He wasn't with us for as long as I would have liked him to have been, but when he did play, he was just excellent. And then he the goal that he scored against Chelsea, the volley, I thought that was really, really good. Unfortunately, I think as the season progressed, he did drop off slightly. The system didn't suit him as well as it had previously, but just for those few games he did play, I don't think you could have asked anyone to step up more than he did.
Yeah, great player, some wonderful goals against Chelsea, standing out. And yeah, I mean, look, it was during the Ashley era, of course, is when you watched your football, and he certainly was somebody who stood out. Some great goals, always had a smile on his face as well. And again, somebody who the fans loved because he got them out of their seat, which is it seems to be a common occurrence in your team, Holly. But George, your next striker comes as no surprise, I don't think, to most people.
No, I don't think.
Seeing as though you sneaked Jackie Milburn in on the right, you see, this gives you the opportunity to play these two together.
Well, if you pick Shearer and you want a good pairing, you can only pick Les Ferdinand. I mean, they were the absolute perfect foil for one another. If one wasn't there, the other one was, and they fed each other. And again, a superb athlete, a huge man, but a very agile man, very fit, unbeatable in the air if the ball's put in the right place, 2-footed, no danger of him having to change feet and miss a goal scoring chance. If you put it in front of him, whichever foot it comes to would end up at the back of the net. And as I say, it could only pick him as the ideal foil for Alan Shearer. So Les Ferdinand is my number 2 striker.
Okay, so Cisse up front for you, Holly. Who's partnering him?
Demba Ba. Same season. Again, I said he did the first kind of half and then Cisse took over in the second half. Again, someone that had a great goal scoring record, scored pretty much in every game that he played during the first half, which unfortunately was cut short by injury. Someone that didn't necessarily work the best with Cisse at all times, I must say. Separately, they kind of did really well. When they were together, I don't think they did quite as well. And I know I've played them as a partnership, but I think it was genuinely down to the system that we did go on to play, which didn't suit the two players together. I think if they'd have played more of a 4-4-2 in that season, then they would have linked up really well and probably played well together, because I think there was the potential there. But yeah, again, someone that just it could get you off your seat, you could rely on him in front of goal, and he was just a proper forward. That's someone that we really kind of miss at Newcastle in current day. Not obviously disrespecting Callum Wilson, because he is good, but we don't have a wealth of talent in that department anymore.
No, definitely not. I remember him coming in as well. There was a little bit of a query as to whether they could play together, but it took a little bit of time, but they eventually managed to play well. And good player. I just remember thinking, wow, what a powerhouse he was. And great selection. And
I have to say,
great 11s.
Well, I have to say I do appreciate Holly's football reasons for putting those two in, because there were two great players. There's no doubt about it.
No, definitely not. So 2 great 11s from both of you, and 2 very different 11s. So now we're going to look at the substitutes. George, over to you for your first sub.
Given his goalkeeper, he was possibly one of the best shot stoppers I've ever seen. Not necessarily the complete goalkeeper, but one of the best shot stoppers I've ever seen. And interestingly, a bit like Ronnie Simpson, 5'10", as Ronnie Simpson was, and Charlie Minton thought Ronnie Simpson was too small. Well, what would you have thought about Shea Given? Exactly the same, but Shea, as I said, took the biscuit when it comes to shot stopping. And I think if you look at his record of clean sheets and so on, wherever he's been, he came out quite well. It was a hard one because I also liked Tim Krul and came very close to putting Tim in, but I resisted that. I got to know Tim Krul very well in a very roundabout sort of way. In a period of my working life at the university, used to go to Greece a lot, and used to be going to Athens about once a month, sometimes more, and usually fly back through Schiphol. And if Tim Krul had been playing for the Netherlands, I usually find myself sitting next to him on the aeroplane coming back to Newcastle. And so we got to chatting and got to know each other quite well. And what a lovely lad he is. But at the end of the day, I thought Shea Given just edged it as the better shot stopper.
Okay, so Holly, who is your first sub?
George's other choice, Tim Krill, was my choice for the second keeper. I just think he's someone that even to this day is massively respected by the fans. Of course, when Norwich come to St James's Park, he gets a really good reception. He's a good shot stopper, played for us through some difficult times, it's fair to say, times when we were letting a lot of goals in. The defence wasn't particularly great, but yet he always stepped up. And another player that really appreciated his time at the club and always gave 100% whilst working really well with the defence as well. I think he's someone that got along with other people in the squad quite well, which definitely reflected on the pitch, because I think he had a lot of respect both from the players and the fans as well as the manager.
Great stuff. Okay, next sub, please, George.
Alan Kennedy, who I thought was an outstanding fullback and one of the original attacking wing backs. He was superb going forward, but equally good at the back, and a hard worker for whoever he played for, and went on, as you know, to play many times for England, never mind Newcastle and Liverpool. But he was my next sub.
Yeah, good player, and as I say, another good servant to the club. Okay, Holly, your next one on the bench?
Peter Lovenkrands. The hat-trick that he scored against Plymouth in the FA Cup was just a game that massively stood out for me. I thought that really kind of showcased his ability. He had a good partnership with Andy Carroll as well when he was at the club in the kind of 2010-11 kind of time. He put in great effort all the time. He did play well with Shola Amiobi as well. His time did end a little bit too sharply because of injury, but again, he was just another player that I think he just put in really, really good effort, and he wasn't necessarily the most technically gifted, but he did try his best.
Yeah.
Okay, next substitute for you, George.
An oldie, I'm afraid, and an oldie because I got to know him quite well. Frank Brennan, who was a superb centre-back, a giant of a man. But again, I go back to this issue about footballers being athletes. Frank Brennan was another one who realised very early and took to doing weights and doing all sorts of other things. And in the summer, was a very active cricketer, even though he was a dour Scotsman, but a lovely man. And as I say, he was my next sub as a cover for the back four, I would say. Interesting story about Frank Brennan. The school I played for, the Stevenson School at Wallsend, we had black and white stripes as strips. And our teacher, who was also a football coach, was Alec Tate, who played centre forward for Newcastle, scored a hat-trick against Sunderland. And when we were getting the team ready, Alec Tate said, look, I think we can win the county cup, but we're not going with those old strips that we've got. Well, we had black and white strips that had been washed so much. They were grey and white. They weren't black and white. In fact, they were nearly white and white, but never mind. Alec Tate went up to St James's Park and asked Stan Seymour if he could give him a discount from his sports shop for the school to get with some strips. And Seymour flat, I mean, this is his centre forward, flat blanked him and wouldn't even talk about it, just turned his back on him. So on his way out to St James's Park, he bumped into Frank Brennan, who by now had a sports shop in Gallagher. I don't know if you can remember his sports shop in Gallagher, Steve. And Frank says, what's the matter? You look upset. He says, well, that so-and-so's just, he wouldn't even give us a discount for the kids for strips. So Frank Brennan sent it out to his shop. He didn't just give him a discount. He gave him a whole set of black and white strips and shorts and socks for the school. Free gratis. That was Frank Brennan. Typical of the man. But he was my next defender choice anyway.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff, that, George. Great. So love them stories. Okay, next sub for you then, Holly. Another defender, I think.
Yeah, Mike Williamson for me. He did play for the club for quite a long time, left about 4 or 5 years ago, partnered up quite well with Colaccini, and he did keep Stephen Taylor out the side at one point. He was very, very reliable, a proper centre-back, very tall, very kind of strong, and always kind of won the ball when it was a 50-50 challenge. It was a toss-up between him and Federico Fernandez, I must say, because Fernandez, for me, is someone that is a massively kind of underrated player within the side. He's an unsung hero. Yeah, he is.
I agree.
he always does step up when you need to. And I think because he doesn't really kind of do a great deal necessarily on the ball all the time, he goes unnoticed, but he just makes such a big difference. And he's probably the most reliable centre-back that we have at the club currently, I think. So it was between those two for me, but Williamson just edged it.
Yeah, good and obviously the manager at Gateshead now as well.
Yeah.
Well, I like Williamson until he had that ridiculous match at Leicester where there was some suspicion that he deliberately got sent off, but never mind that. But you're right.
I remember that.
He did contribute, and your observations about Fernandes, I think, are spot on, Holly. I do think the football reasons you've given for that are absolutely right. A very underrated player, in my opinion.
He definitely is.
Okay, next on the bench for you, George.
Oh, Gary Speed. I had to find a space for Gary Speed somewhere. Another legend in many senses of the word, but again, a midfielder that could be a defensive midfielder. He could be an attacking midfielder. He could score goals from almost any part of the field. Brilliant headed goals. But another one who would die for the team, wear his heart on his sleeve. And again, another tragic loss to his family and the football generally, Gary, and really emphasises, I think, how football, along with other sports, need to think carefully about the mental torment sometimes these people in high-profile positions go through. And but Gary was such a nice guy again, but again, end to end. Hard tackle, good header, 2 feet, shoot from anywhere in the field. Gary Speed was my next one.
Yeah, another player sadly missed and went too soon. Okay, Holly, next one for you, next on the bench.
Jonas Gutierrez. Aside from Hatton Ben Arthur, he was probably my second favourite player at the club, just because he just had such a big heart. Everything about him was just brilliant. His iconic Spider-Man celebration with the mask, absolutely loved it. It was something a bit different. He had a great connection with the fans, still does. He was massively mistreated by the club, in my opinion. And of course, when he got his diagnosis, he wasn't really treated fairly by the club when he was struggling with cancer and stuff like that. But he did score the goal against West Ham in that 2-0 win, which did keep us up in the 14-15 season. Unfortunately, we did go down the year after, but that was his last game for the club. And he went over at the director's box, and everyone remembers, and he did the shush celebration, which just really, for me, just showed that, he was going to fight till the end for the club, and he did just that. And the way he was treated was still something that upsets me to this day, to be honest, but he's someone that'll always be loved by the Newcastle fans.
Yeah, and he's got a six-pack. It's a wonder he wasn't in your team, George.
Well, look at the shoulders on him as well. You go back into the 50s and find some of the older ones who dare to take their shirts off. That would put them to shame,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, good job I can compete with them, but I'm not going to show you today. Okay, your next sub, George.
The last one, a personal favourite, but also a great servant to the club and a good support for the front two, and even occasionally in midfield was John Tudor, an all-round attacker. I think John Tudor could play right across the front five, but particularly in the middle two. And as I say, occasionally could even drop into midfield. But a hard worker. I don't think he ever got the credit that he deserved, simply because he made the unfortunate mistake of being in the same team as Supermac. How could he? I mean, people were going to laud Supermac, but John Tudor was an important support to Supermac and to the team, and filled in when necessary. He was a good hard worker for Newcastle United, and I like John Tudor.
Yeah, hallelujah, John Tudor. Another good song. Okay, Holly, your final sub.
My last player is Remy. He did only play for one season on loan in the 13-14 season, but he impressed massively. He scored 5 goals in 3 games, and then he went on to score 3 in 3 consecutive wins, I think it was. His favourite goal for me was the last-minute winner that he scored against Aston Villa. Again, another player that did drop off ever so slightly towards the end of the season-long loan, but I'd love to have seen him play for us for longer, because I thought that season that he did play on loan just made such a big impression, to the point where he's actually made it in my dream team, and I think a lot of fans will kind of remember him, despite he only played for such a short amount of time.
I think that's a shout, Holly. I do like that. Can I also comment on your picture, Steve? Because he's with. He's with
Joe Kinnear, of course. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can blame Joe Kinnear for getting me onto social media.
Why?
Well, I had nothing to do with social media at all. I wouldn't do Facebook. I wouldn't do Twitter or anything like that. And then after that 4-letter word rant of Kinnear's, when he was first appointed at St James's Park, I was just so frustrated. I wanted to express myself and tell the world how upset I was as a Newcastle fan. So I joined Twitter and I joined Facebook, and I littered them all that week with my opinion of Joe Kinnear.
That's brilliant. Great stuff. Okay, then. Who is your manager, George?
Oh, can only be one man, Kevin Keegan. In all the years I've watched Newcastle United, and now it's now coming up to 76 years since I seen my first game. We've had nothing like the entertainers, and that was him. That was his heart was on the pitch with them players, and you cannot forget it. You know, there's and we became every other person's second best team in the world, never mind in the country. The years that Kevin Keegan was our manager, I was a selector in the university in the department I was in, and my applications for my little course, what was a relatively little course, I'd lucky if I got 400 applications a year, from which I needed about 50 students. During Kevin Keegan's time there, it shot up to over 1,000 people applying to come to Newcastle, and that was all because they wanted to come to Newcastle to see the entertainers and Kevin Keegan. And it just was amazing, absolutely amazing, the things that he did for our club. And I always have time to give you a story about our Neil.
Of course you have.
I was awarded an honour by the Sports Council in London for contributions to local sport. I was with the local chairman of the North Tyneside Sports Council, and I'd set up one or two things which they thought were worthy of an honour. I was made some sort of fellowship of the Sports Council or something, and I had to go to the gates at Civic Centre to get it. And I said to O'Neill, who was in the dental school at the time, studying his dentistry, "Do you want to come with me and your mum and have your lunch while I'm getting this award?" And he said, "Well, who's giving you the award?" I said, "Well, they haven't told us yet. I don't know." So we're going to the Civic Centre, and they were going to a big room. But to get to the big room, there was one or two small rooms. And in one of the smaller rooms, I happened to look through the crack in the door, and who should be there but Kevin Keegan? So I said to Marge, I said, "He's going to be presenting me with the award." So I phoned O'Neill at the union. I said, "It's Kevin Keegan that's going to give us this award. I've got the photo somewhere. I'll have to let you have a copy, Steve, sometime." And but he couldn't get out of his class, so he missed meeting Kevin Keegan at that particular day in Gates at Civic Centre, and he still spits about it today if somebody reminds him. So, sorry to digress, but
no, that's good. That's what people enjoy the show for. So great stuff, George. And Holly, last but by no means least, your manager.
Rafa Benitez, definitely an easy choice for me in my lifetime. He came into the club when I think it's fair to say we were probably at the worst point we've been, one of the lowest points. We were so in so much disrepair, we were so damaged, but it wasn't just kind of on the pitch, it was off the pitch, just everything was an unorganised mess, and he came in and he repaired all that within a matter of days. I think even from walking in the door, it instantly started to heal over some of them wounds, and the fans took to him straight away. I still think it's a miracle that we did manage to get him. He came in, didn't manage to keep us up, unfortunately, but I don't think anyone was really expecting him to, because it was such a difficult job. We were pretty much already down. Last game of the season, we won 5-1 against Spurs. St James's Park had one of the best atmospheres that it probably has done for years. It's one of the games I remember most, and it was like we'd won the league, never mind being relegated. It was just crazy. Championship, went on to win that, absolutely brilliant. Had no investment, then went on to finish 10th in the Premier League in the first season back, which is a huge, huge achievement. And even the last season that he had with us, we finished 13th, but it was still a decent season. And he made the best that he could with very limited resources. He really knew how to play football. He was disciplined, he was organised. He loved the city, he loved the club, he loved the fans. And I would love to have seen him stay here, but unfortunately it wasn't meant to be.
I have to say, it was a hard one for me because I am a thoroughly strong Rafa Benitez fan. And I think it's a tragedy that he's not up there sorting out all the things he could have sorted out for us. But good shout, Holly, good shout.
Well, George, Holly, two great teams. Thanks for doing it together. I think it was great. I think it shows a wonderful array of players that we've had in both your generations. And I think it shows that we still love an entertainer. We still love to see a player who gets us out of our seats. And most importantly, we love to see goal scorers. So I think it's been great to have you both on to do it. Thanks very much for your time, George. Thanks very much, Holly.
Thank you, Stephen. Nice to meet you, Holly, and good luck with all your endeavours. What are you doing with your GCSEs? Have you decided yet? Are you going to do A-levels or?
I'm doing healthcare college.
Good for you. Good for you. Good luck with it.
Well done, Holly. And thanks a lot, guys. Take care. See you again soon. Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.